Hi, Kara from Health, Home, and Happiness here. Today we're talking about baby food, and the first foods that I give my children are going to surprise you, but probably what will surprise you even more is that they absolutely love that. So while we talk today, I want to encourage you to put away your biases about what babies will like. They don't need bland rice cereal. And we're going to look into the different nutrients that babies especially need and how to get those from foods that will make such an impact in their lives to come. As you know, our babies are so tiny and they're growing so rapidly, especially around the time that you're introducing the first foods. So their brains are learning tons and tons of new things. Their guts are becoming better able to digest food, and they're going through so many milestones. So today we're going to talk about baby food that is most optimal for gut health, is most optimal for brain development, and most optimal for those quickly growing baby bodies. So the first thing I want to talk about is liver, and this is the first food that I give my babies. This is just a little bit of chicken liver that I have sauteed in a little bit of butter. If your baby is sensitive to milk, then you might want to saute it in a little bit of tallow or coconut oil. I'll show you in another video exactly how I prepare this for my babies and how I store it just in these little, just little pieces of liver for the babies. And then I just pull out about a tablespoon at a time and thaw that and let my baby kind of gum it. Liver is something, if you haven't had it before, the texture is really soft. It's not like muscle meat or even ground beef where there's big chunks that aren't going to be digested well and baby can't really gum to get them soft enough. So liver is something that is soft enough that baby can chew. It is high in vitamin B12, it's high in iron, it's high in D, and it's high in folic acid. And especially the iron and D are something that your pediatrician might recommend your baby supplement. My doctor was perfectly, after giving me a funny look, my doctor was perfectly okay with me giving my baby liver on a 3-time weekly basis or so instead of supplementing him. So liver is a great first food for babies. It has all the nutrients that they need. It's just really a powerhouse, and plus it's so soft that it's really easy for them to digest, because we don't want to have them, because we don't really want them to be eating food like raisins or something. They might like them because they're sweet, but you see them come right back out, and so we know that they're not getting a lot of nutrition from them. But liver is something that my babies have all been able to gum, even if they didn't get their first teeth until later on. They've been able to gum and digest really well. You might be thinking, how do I get my baby to eat liver? I think your baby doesn't have the strong bias that you do. So I have found that babies a lot of times will even like drink salsa, like you put out chips and salsa and suddenly you see your toddler, and this is pretty common, I hear about this in lots of families, so that suddenly you see your toddler going up to the table and just like drinking the salsa out of the bowl, where it might even be like a medium or a hot salsa, and the toddler just doesn't care. Like, babies aren't tasting things the same way that we are. And so we might have that preconceived notion that they need everything bland and sweet and barely tasting like anything, no seasonings and no salt. But actually liver and salt we'll talk about a little bit later. But liver is something that, yes, it tastes strong to us, but to our babies love it. It's almost like they inherently know that they need it. Cod liver oil is another strong tasting food that babies tend to just crave. Like if they need it, they're craving it. I feel like around preschool age, a lot of babies are losing that, where they're not craving the foods that are so good for them anymore. But usually when you're starting solids between 6 months and a year, babies are going to crave and they are going to accept the foods they need, and that includes liver. So I would definitely encourage you to start with liver. Sauerkraut is another strong tasting food that babies tend to love. They love the salty and they love the sour. Your baby, you can just put on a little bit of sauerkraut on a plate or some juice, put a few liver chunks on a plate, and then liberally sprinkle the real sea salt, the salt that still has all those vitamins and minerals and hasn't been cleaned from the sea. And that's going to give the trace iodine, the trace minerals, and the sodium that babies do need for their electrolytes. And the third thing that I recommend you feed your babies is fish roe. And this is salmon eggs, which is fish roe. I buy mine at Vital Choice. It comes in a box like this, frozen with dry ice. You can see those, and then I keep them in the freezer, and then I'll pull them out to thaw in the fridge for about a day before I'm gonna serve them. And I try to use them up within a couple days of getting them out into the freezer. But this is fish roe. And these are salty, they taste a little fishy like we talked about with the cod liver oil. Babies enjoy this. It's almost like they intuitively know what they need, just like you can usually let babies breastfeed on demand and your milk will change according to what the babies need. Babies are just incredibly intuitive. They're not using really the thinking part of their brain yet. They are operating on instinct, which then we outgrow sadly, and things take a lot more thinking. But babies end up loving these salmon eggs, and again, they are nice and soft. They're little tiny finger food. You can put like 3 or 4 of these, and we just start so little. And that's actually another misconception, is people think, oh, well, my baby only eats a couple tablespoons of food a day, so why does it matter what it is? Well, that matters even more. Like, your baby's growing so much, they're only eating a couple tablespoons. We want to make sure that those tablespoons have the most amount possible. So if you can get over your bias, you can see that my children absolutely loved all these things. Like, Levi's eating some steamed green beans and some liver, which for the liver, I just tend to take a couple chunks out of the freezer, let it thaw on a plate, and then give that to him once it's thawed. And he's eating some green beans and he thinks it's the greatest thing ever. So as long as we can get over our biases that babies don't like liver, that salmon eggs are going to be too fishy tasting for them, that this is weird. Your baby doesn't know that any of this is weird. Your baby just kind of has this intuitive sense of what nutrition they need. If they need the vitamin B9, the natural folate, the iron, the B12, the protein, all of that stuff that's in liver, or the omega-3 fatty acids, which is so important for brain health, which is in the fish eggs. The Activator X that Dr. Weston Price talked about in his book, Nutrition and Physical Degeneration, is now it's referred to as K2, which is, if you know, the babies are naturally low in vitamin K2, and some people think that that might be a Western phenomenon. And some people think that might be a Western phenomenon because we actually don't include fish eggs in our diet, where in traditional cultures, they knew that they needed to get the eggs from the fish, the liver, and all that stuff that naturally, and the grass-fed butter that naturally has the vitamin K2 in it. And so your baby will benefit from all of these foods. They're amazing for their gut health. They're building their gut lining right now. It's not quite ready, like they can't really digest grains. But the hope is that when we prepare their guts well and we give them all the nourishing foods that help develop a healthy body, a healthy gut, a healthy brain, then they will be able to avoid so many of the chronic diseases that are going around. Lots of people think that it's the vitamin K2 deficiency that's causing so many of the chronic diseases. It's also the lack of natural folate, which I talk about in another video, that we are choosing natural folate that's found in liver instead of artificial folate, folic acid that's found in so many supplements and fortified food. And then next is probiotics, and that's where our sauerkraut can come in, naturally fermented pickles, any natural fermented food. Babies love that sour taste. They really love those strong tastes. So if you can kind of forget everything everyone ever told you about babies need to start with bland rice cereal and think like, my baby naturally has these cravings for these very healthy foods that are needed for their digestive system. And if you don't believe me, go ahead and you can buy naturally fermented sauerkraut at a lot of health food stores now. Bubby's brand is great. Just make sure there's no added sugar. In some of the pickles, there's added sugar, which we don't want to introduce yet. That does not promote a healthy gut. But the naturally fermented sauerkraut, that sour taste, just put a couple of these little cabbage pieces or some of the juice on your baby's high chair tray and see what he does. And my guess is that he's going to love them. He's going to suck on them. He's going to smile. He's going to enjoy this whole process. And my guess is that he's going to love it. So just go ahead and give it a try. See what you think. For the liver, if you don't want to make that baby liver and you just want to give it a little try, go again to your health food store and see if there's a liver pate. And so if there's liver pate, just check the ingredients and make sure there's nothing that you want to avoid for your baby. But a lot of them has just really simple ingredients, and sea salt is good. The herbs and spices are just fine. They're not going to hurt your baby. I would probably avoid milk if there's butter in it. If you haven't introduced milk or you know your child has problems with milk protein, you might want to avoid that. But just give him a little bit on a spoon and see what he thinks. And then for the fish, if you don't want to start with the salmon eggs, just a little bit of salmon, puree that up. like in a blender with a little bit, if you're nursing, a little bit of breast milk or a little bit of water, just to make that a nice paste, and see what your baby thinks about salmon. You want to choose wild caught salmon for that. But that again is available at most health food stores, and even most regular grocery stores have that. Those are the 3 things that I introduce first for my babies. It's a little bit unconventional. Oh, and then these jars, when you're done with these from the salmon eggs, they are perfect baby food jars. So I tend to just fill this up for my little ones, and if I know we're going to be eating while we're out, I'll put in some liver, usually some steamed like green beans or peas or something that's easy for them to pick up, and a little bit of sauerkraut for the probiotics. And that's a great portable solution for when you're out and about, because I know everybody wants to feed the baby. Everybody loves babies. And babies are just, they have that, like, everybody has this drive to want to take care of them. And so many people don't think of food as being a thing that they need, a nutrient. They think of, oh, well, it's okay to give baby ice cream because it's soft and they're not going to choke on it. It's okay to give baby French fries. Baby's going to love French fries. It's easy for them to hold and grasp and chew even without, teeth. And so this is just people's thought process. You have to